The following program is a podcast1.com production.
Your healthy radio addiction starts now.
Power to the people!
The Laura Ingraham Show.
Get all dressed up and go out to swing till 4 a.m. and then I'll lay down at 5 and jump up at 6 and start all over again. 'Cause she's a W-M-A-N.
When I have a chance to tell my story, Michael, quite a story to tell. As the only African-American woman in this White House, as a senior staff and assistant to the president, I have seen things that have made me uncomfortable, that have upset me, that have affected me deeply and emotionally, that has affected my community and my people. And when I can tell my story, it is a profound story that I know the world will want to hear.
I hope you find something to do, O. I do. And I hope that you find your people, because maybe they're looking for you.
The ones you refer to are not checking on you.
She's just been so nasty to so many women, and so many women of color.
They were not happy with Omarosas coming or going, apparently. That was Whoopi Goldberg, of course, Raymond Arroyo, and Laura Ingraham.
I think Omarosa's always getting a raw deal.
Well, I don't understand the rage toward her.
Fascination, too.
Well, it's the reality thing. She was the villain, and I think for so many in the black community, they felt like she somehow undercut the community by siding with Donald Trump and going to work for him. Remember, she was a Democrat. She worked for Al Gore and the Clintons. And I want to play for you a little of the rage that was unleashed upon her. First of all, why is Whoopi Goldberg calling anybody a hoe? I mean,
I thought that was.
Isn't that
was hate speech?
Or slut shaming or whatever the new term of the moment is. Now, this is Tara Setmeyer and Angela Rye on one of these other shows, maybe The View as well. Listen.
CNN. Let's go.
Omarosa was constantly an impediment to anyone qualified to come in there and do their jobs. The stories are numerous, and she was so reviled by so many people. First of all, she was completely unqualified. She's been doing nothing but stealing the taxpayers' money this entire time because no one knows what the hell she was doing.
Tell us how you feel.
And when you can just, the stories are lengthy.
She's a real.
The stories are lengthy.
She's really intelligent herself, that one.
It's like Omarosa, I have a story to tell. And did you hear Robin Roberts? Now, Robin Roberts is somebody who covers newswoman, and
she's always, the nice one.
Well, she pulled out the shiv the other day at the end of the Michael Strahan interviews Omarosa.
This is on Good Morning America. And by the way, this is Christmas time, and we're decking our tree with stories of Omarosa, which, I'm not sure anyone cares about Omarosa, but it is comedic. It is, you have to laugh.
Your voice is
totally under the weather.
Oh, no.
But
Laura.
It's just, you do have to laugh, though, because the bile that is emitted about Omarosa and it's the same as the bile emitted about Donald Trump. They dislike Trump so much. And the two of them together, that is just a pile of hate.
Well, and then they keep saying, look, she didn't do any outreach to anybody. And they said we didn't even know what she did. Well, she was director of communications of the Office of Liaison. It isn't like she didn't have a job. She was in the public liaison office. Now,
she didn't do anything.
Well, she didn't do much. But
she didn't do much.
I know, but it's not like people did know. You know what the big
does anything in government. It's just like Omarosa. Suddenly these Democrats are upset about wasting the taxpayers' money? I don't think so. I'm calling you-know-what on them. They don't care about how much money the taxpayers spend on salaries. Yeah. You can walk through any federal department, shoot a cannon through the federal department. You could hit somebody whose job could be eliminated because the requirements are lengthy.
I have 3 words: White House garden.
Oh, yeah, exactly. They should have bulldozed that thing.
So Laura last night asked Sean Spicer.
Oh, God. wouldn't say anything.
He was a little less than forthcoming, I thought.
Spicer, if you're going to come on my show, give us something. Don't sit there and say, I'm not going to say.
Laura quizzed Spicer about this, and I have a little new news on why she might have been shown the door. Go ahead, play that.
She is going to be leaving the White House on January 20th, and it was a big focus of the White House briefing today. It's like, they never talk about Omarosa, but today, like, well, why is she being paid through January 20th? What is it, like $1,500? I mean, like, what are you, but anyway, what's going on there? Do you know any insights?
I don't. But I think...
why was she hired, do you think?
I don't know. But I think it's important that...
Does she have any qualifications to work in the White House?
I think
I like her. I mean, she's nice to me.
I think that, look, she was very loyal to the president.
She campaigned for him.
And I think the president brought a lot of people who wanted to fulfill his agenda. And that's his prerogative as president-elect at the time.
Duck and weave.
I wish her the best, but I'm not really sure.
My ratings tanked in that segment. They tanked. My ratings are tanking. I could see the meter going down on that answer. I mean, come on, Spicer. You got to give me something.
Well, apparently, all they had to do was read, like, the Washington Post. They have a story where John Kelly, the chief of staff...
the general versus Omarosa.
General Kelly comes in and starts looking at the record and finds out Omarosa brought her whole wedding party into the White House to do a photo shoot and apparently didn't get much clearance, didn't feel the need to inform the Secret Service, maybe. She just used the hard pass, I guess, and waved everybody in. Well, John Kelly was not thrilled with that.
This is not your reception hall. Unless you're the daughter of the president or the son of the president, you don't bring your wedding party in. Imagine if I just decided to bring Maria's class into the Supreme Court and have a picnic without telling anybody. Hi, Justice Thomas. I didn't mind that. I brought them all in. That is crazy.
So she was not warmly received. She also had a tough relationship, let's face it, with a lot of the people in the West Wing.
They didn't like her, Raymond.
They didn't like her.
She was not well liked. But you know something? As a strong woman myself, as a very strong woman,
to coin a phrase,
to mimic Michelle Obama, that other strong woman. Strong women can really be off-putting to certain people.
This is true.
They can be very off-putting. We have a great Ingraham angle on tap tonight. It's going to be filled with Christmas surprises.
And cheer, I hope.
And I hope a voice.
Oh,
yes,
well.
I hope a voice.
If not, I'll sit behind. It'll be like singing in the rain. I'll stand behind you and you just mouth the words.
I might do that, actually.
It could be a way to get through this.
Is Triumph the insult dog still around? Because I really want to book him. Is he around?
The man whose hand is in Triumph,
right.
or Triumph?
Well, I like
Triumph
that.
is a
You're
rubber
you're ruining the sense of mystery and whimsy for me.
I never understood Triumph, the insult dog.
It's basically a puppet that says everything you want to say to somebody.
I know, but why does it have a weird, South American accent?
Hey, I don't know.
I don't like you very much.
I don't know.
Get out of here. I don't know.
Omarosa, your presence in the White House is like the plague.
Oh, no. I never quite got Triumph, the insult dog. Speaking of insults, Robin Roberts, right after the segment.
Okay, we're back to her.
Yeah, with Omarosa. But you got to hear this. I just thought this was so... Imagine you've gone on a show, you've given them an exclusive, which she did, and the anchor basically slits your throat just as you leave.
She said she has a story to tell, and I'm sure she'll be selling that story.
We'll see.
Well, yeah, she will. Bye, Felicia.
I'm sure she'll be selling that story. Bye, Felicia. Which is a reference to a movie called Friday that I don't know, but the Bye Felicia.
Gone with the Wind.
Yeah.
Frankly, Scarlett, I don't give a damn. Or Bye Felicia.
Bye Felicia.
No, but there are legitimate questions to be raised about the types of hires that Donald Trump has made and not made, and I've said this from the very beginning. When you staff key departments with people who are not loyalists, and when individuals come into your employer, the taxpayer's employee surrounding you, who are not conservative populists, then you're going to find yourself in trouble. And Omarosa was not one of those. No. Nor was she all that qualified to do much. I'm sorry. But look, a lot of these people are young. I was 22. What the heck was I qualified to do at the White House? I was a writer. I wrote, so I started writing speeches for Gary Bauer when he was domestic
I know, but you weren't leading
advisor.
a department.
No,
you weren't head of the communications department.
I was just a tiny little cog in the wheel. But I do believe that we seem to have a lot of people being hired and pushed throughout the government who are who are just friends. Don McGahn, the White House counsel, has a lot of friends that are really smart and they're good lawyers. But then he has people who are ill-suited for jobs, I think, who have gotten jobs in the Trump administration. And sometimes that happens because you're like, well, I know him and he's honest and he's hardworking and he's pretty smart, but maybe it's not the right person for Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's not the right person for the president. And there was an embarrassing moment yesterday at the House Judiciary Committee when Congressman Kennedy from Louisiana just dismantled a Trump nominee for the Federal District Court of D.C., which is an important district court. It's not an unimportant district court.
No.
And we'll play a little bit of that. Now, it was grandstanding on the congressman's part because he knew this particular judicial nominee. And they usually waive these judicial nominees through for the district court versus the federal courts of appeals, which are much more involved hearings because they're one level down from the Supreme Court. You have 12 circuit courts. You have the federal circuit court. You have the military court of appeals, federal claims court of appeals, all that. But in the district court, usually the senators, the home state senators, get to waive people through or stop them for district court especially. So if Chuck Schumer, for instance, was really opposed to a district court judge in New York, he could kick up a fuss and Trump would probably not name him. That's just how it goes to the district court. Mm-hmm. You often don't get elevated from a district court to a court of appeals judge. Often not. It's just usually stay at the district court. So it's not as big of a deal. So when we come back, we'll just share a Q&A with Congressman Kennedy that did not go well for the Trump administration. And it shows you, number one, that staffing matters, expertise matters, and preparation matters. 855-40-LAURA. We'll get to that and a lot more. Our guest coming up.
Brian Kilmeade's coming up.
Great.
Steve Moore will talk about the tax hang-up on Capitol Hill. Marco Rubio.
We knew he was going to do.
Still holding everybody hostage up there.
We knew he was going to do that. That was.
And we're going to get into the Not Me movement, the backlash against Me Too, which we talked about a little bit on the Ingraham angle last night.
Or Men Too movement. There should be a Men Too. Men count too. As more allegations about Dustin Hoffman and all these other. I mean, it is. But, here's the problem with, and then some woman came out about Matt Lauer, who was a 22-year-old intern or something at NBC in 1980, I think, or was it 90?
Going back 30 years.
Was it 90? I can't remember.
It was 90.
90. Anyway, and she said she didn't tell it was consensual, and she didn't tell anyone until 7 years later. Now, how is that? I mean, it's wrong, but how is that? It's wrong to be in the workplace like that, but how is it in any way informative of sexual attacks?
Well, this is what I'm saying.
We're
going to get into this because there's a philosophical problem about all of this too that we're running afoul of, and America and the entertainment industry and media advertise one thing, and then they want everyone to act like something quite else. We'll get into all of this. 1-855-40-LAURA. 855-40-LAURA is the number. We'd love to hear from you on both Omarosa and. If you've been, as a man, inappropriately or improperly charged with sex abuse, sexual harassment, sexual talk.
And be honest.
Be honest.
Be honest. Or if it's unfair.
And we'll share with you a story of a guy who was inappropriately attacked, and he's come out on the other side. Yeah.
All right, and I'm going to go bathe my throat in some brandy. I'm just kidding. Stay with us. She has a story to tell. Did you see any part of her story?
I don't.
Give me something here. You saw some of the story.
Look, all
She's a very charismatic person, very colorful, charismatic individual. She's big personality. I kind of like that, but some people can't take that.
I will let you leave it at that.
Thanks to my wonderful sponsors and your support, I'm glad to say that we can provide this podcast at no cost to you at all. As a loyal listener of my program, please consider testing our sponsors because they're the ones who actually cover the cost to produce this daily show. So if you're a dog lover like I am, how about giving your dog, your best friend, a fresh, healthy, and nutritious diet? When dogs eat well, they live longer and happier lives. I'm here to tell you about NomNomNow.com, which cooks the world's best dog food. It's made fresh in the USA and delivered right to your door every week. Nom Nom Now's custom customized recipes, cook fresh in our kitchen, delivering healthy nutrition you can actually see. Switch to Nom Nom now, and your dog will have more energy, a shinier, softer coat, and a longer, better life. Nom Nom now really is the best food for your best friend. And right now you can save 50% on your first 2 orders of fresh, healthy dog food when you use my code Laura at nomnomnow.com. That's code Laura and save 50% on your first 2 orders. NOM now.com and code word LAURA.
This whole notion of due process is a legal term. When we're talking about the employment, that does not go into the realm of the employment agency.
Wendy, in the name of justice, though, you can't just be charging men and having secret investigations with people who may have had consensual relationships with him. Maybe he's telling the truth. Here's my problem. We are seeing a rash of this. This feels like a revival of The Crucible. I hope Arthur Miller is getting residuals for this.
Oh, that was good. That was last night on the Ingraham Angle. Make sure to tune in tonight if you're out at a holiday party. Make sure to DVR us so you watch the show when you can over the weekend. A little holiday cheer will make you laugh, make you cry, make you think. And there is something to this, is there not? That you have a witch hunt mentality that's turned... It's almost like the cult of Me Too. It's the cult of the Me Too movement. Now it's, I can emote more than you can emote. And this is not to denigrate the true harm that is done by sexual harassment, because it is real and it is brutal. And men who do this need to be summarily dismissed from their positions in the workplace, and they will pay the price. And in more ways than one, they're going to pay the price. But you also have to understand, all of us have to understand, that this dynamic can come back to bite all of us in different ways. Now, you might think because you're a woman, oh, you're safe. Oh, really? Oh, really? Mm-hmm. Any disgruntled employee can come back and say, oh, well, I felt this. Oh, really? Then why didn't you leave? This was so, oh, really? Then why did you cash your paycheck? Oh, it was just, no, actually, you're just looking for a quick payday, and guess what? I'll see you in court. I'm sorry, but there are a lot of people now like, just try it. Just try it.
Well, they think because people have a public face and they have a public reputation that if you go at them, they're going to collapse and write you a check.
No, a lot of people now are saying no way.
Right.
Get ready to have your life splashed all over the courtroom.
Well, the men are now fighting back a little bit. Russell Simmons is fighting back. He's saying the accusations against him are false. He says, today I begin to properly defend myself. I will prove without a doubt that I am innocent of all the rape charges, adding a hashtag not me to the end. So this is the not me movement.
Hey, so if you are someone, I don't care if you're a man or woman, if you are wrongly accused of some type of misbehavior in the workplace or in the work setting, then I want to hear from you. Something related to work.
And for those of you who know Prison Break, that big Fox show, Robert Knepper was an actor on that show. They just revived it again. They just brought it back. We're going to talk about his story a little later because it illustrates the point we're trying to make, which is there are times when men are inappropriately accused of these things that they didn't do. Now, there are some cases where they did.
Well, Harvey Weinstein.
Well, and those people should be drug out of the studios in the way they have been.
Has anyone checked on Harvey Weinstein? He's in the same clinic as who? Two of the accusers are together.
Oh, no.
People who are accused are in the same clinic. None of my staff can remember. 2 famous people are in one facility. I think it's in Arizona. Who? Spacey. Thank you.
Oh, Kevin Spacey.
God, there's so many people, you forget them.
Maybe they're shooting a new movie in there. Who knows?
Actually, great point. Could be a reality show. Sex Rehab.
Sex Rehab with Dr. Drew.
The Raw edition. Oh, my gosh. We'll take a break. We're going to talk to Steve Moore. Why is Marco Rubio holding out? And what will they give him to get his vote? Stay with us.
It's Christmas in America.
Now we're just days away. I hope. You know what that means, right? From keeping that promise and delivering a truly amazing victory for American families. We want to give you, the American people, a giant tax cut for Christmas. And when I say giant, I mean giant.
It's Christmas in America.
Is it really giant? My taxes are, as far as I can tell, they're going to go up, but that's all right. We're blessed here in the United States, and the Republicans need a win on the board. For some reason, well, not for some reason.
You know the reason.
Yeah. This happens at the end of every fiscal season where we're dealing with funding the government or a major push for legislation. Remember, this is the first time tax reform has been done in 3 decades plus. Now everyone's the holdout. Yeah, holding out to get what you want. I mean, I know that's the way the game is played. I hate that. The Republicans need to have a win on the board. Don't start extracting promises like, it's Tony Soprano here at the last minute. Put your head in a vice and start turning around the lever until the brains come out. Joining us now, Steve Moore.
What an intro.
Isn't that awful, Steve? You think I would use a more festive analogy for Christmas time? Chief Heritage Foundation economist. And one of our favorites. Steve, how are you, my friend? Happy Christmas. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you guys. And I got to tell you, I not just me, but the people, I can't tell you how many calls I got from Marco Rubio supporters, his funders. People are infuriated by what he has done. I had one of his major donors yesterday, Paul. He said, not only, if he goes forward with this, not only will I never give him another penny, he said, I'm going to support anyone who runs against him. And people are really angry. And look, we can argue about the merits of what Marco wants to do with this refundable credit, but that's not what this is about. You just said it very well, Laura. We're at the 9th inning of this game. We're on the not to mix my metaphors, we're on the 1-yard line, and we're about to take this number to the goal line. You got the deal done, and then somebody said, wait, I just have one more condition. Now, one problem with this, Laura, if they give this to Marco Rubio, what do you think the other 49 are going to start doing?
They'll be mad. They don't get anything.
Yeah. Well, then they'll say, I have this one thing I need, and I have this one thing. We'll never get this thing done. So it's a very insidious what Marco's doing. And by the way, Laura, he had his vote on the Senate floor. That's what he had a vote on his amendment, remember 2 weeks ago when the bill was being debated, and he lost 70-30. So, he had his day in court and he lost.
Well, it seems like he's, he came on my show a couple weeks ago, and I knew something was up because, number one, he's not usually clamoring to come on air with me, number one, because we've gone round and round about key issues related to immigration, and it's never really ended well for him. And number two, he was just like a laser beam on this child tax credit increase. And he insists, and I'd like your response to this, he insists that the Republicans will lose working class voters who are in this $40,000 to $70,000 range of income, I believe he said, and he said the firefighters, the teachers, he used all the great professions. You don't use like the other profession, but it's always the good profession. How they're not going to get really much benefit from this. And this has to be done, otherwise we lose them. He was very adamant about this. And I think Ivanka Trump agrees with him. And I'm not an expert in how this all plays out as an economic matter, but I was wondering whether there's merit to what he says about this.
Well, first of all, one of the things that we do under this bill, and as you know, I helped Trump draft the original version of this bill with Larry Kudlow 2 years ago, is we do have the child credit, and we're very generous for families with kids. In fact, I was just on CNN. I do fake news now, and they were saying, well, doesn't the middle class get hurt with this bill? I said, what are you talking about? If you have 3 kids, you get $3,000 off right off the top. Right off the top, you get $3,000 more tax cut than you would get under any, the current bill or any Democratic plan. And so it's very generous to families with kids. Now, he may have some merit with this issue about should people who look, there are a lot of people, as you know, you've talked about this on your show, there are 1/3 to 40% of Americans don't pay any income tax, right? So we found it hard to cut income taxes for people who don't pay income tax. It's just a reality of our situation, and he wants to make this refundable against people's payroll taxes and so on. Look, I mean, I could go either way on that. My point is, you don't bring it up now, right? When we're on right. You had your day in court. We debated this. You made your argument, and you lost. And so I think. But look, let's not get sidetracked here. This bill, Laura, is so explosively pro-growth. You've seen what's happened with the stock market over the last month or two. I've never seen anything like this. $6 trillion increase in wealth of Americans, and every American virtually owns stock, and so they benefit from this. We've got remember, Laura, last year all the liberals saying Donald Trump is lying. We can't get 3% growth in the economy. We're at 3.5%. And we haven't even passed the tax cut yet. This guy is so pro-growth. This tax cut is, as my friend Larry Kudlow says, this is the cherry on top of the sundae. We're going to get big growth next year. And that's the way you benefit middle-class people, a stronger economy, more jobs, higher wages.
Right. So let's assume, for the sake of argument, that the corporate tax cut is lessened and it goes up to 21%. Now, he took issue with me when I said that. He wanted it to go up to 23%, Raymond, or 22%?
22%.
22 or 3, I don't remember. But I kept saying, well, why are you raising taxes? He said, no, it's still a cut. He came back at me, and, obviously it is a cut from 35%. But it looks like to pay for this child tax credit, which he said it's the people's money, so what do you mean paying for it? But, whatever. You have to make the numbers work. You're going to have to increase the corporate tax rate. He said there would be de minimis effect on corporate growth because of that increase in the corporate tax rate. Well, if it's 1 or 2%, do you agree with that?
Yeah, no, not at all. In fact, I mean, that's the argument that Chuck Schumer makes and Nancy Pelosi makes. And lower we started this process 2 years ago with Donald Trump. We wanted a 15% rate. This is about, ladies and gentlemen, trying to make America the most attractive place in the world to invest in. It's about beating the pants off of China and Germany and Russia and Mexico and Canada, all these other countries we compete with, who Trump is right about this. They laugh behind our back. And incidentally, Laura, you know who really doesn't want this tax cut to happen? The leaders of China and Russia and Mexico and Canada, who know that the jig is up if this thing passes. So no, Marco's wrong.
Anything that gets China upset, I'm very happy about, by the way, just as a general matter. That's my rule of thumb.
I know.
I'm good there. Hey, Steve, so you don't really have much doubt, do you, that this tax cut will go through? They're going to have to accommodate Rubio if he stands at the precipice here.
Yeah, I mean, if he says he's not going to vote for it, if he doesn't get his, he's going to take his marbles and go home, then we're going to have to, agree to what he wants. I am very worried. I'm hearing that John McCain may literally be on his deathbed and may not make it through the weekend. I think that, I've always had
then we don't have the votes. Does that mean we don't have the votes? And Cochran doesn't know what zip code he's in. Thad Cochran, God bless him. I mean, Haley Barbour thought it was so important to, weigh in on that race.
Exactly.
We could have had Chris McDaniel in there in Mississippi, but old Cochran, God bless him. Again, the man is 78 years. How old is he? These people have got 80. To retire. I'm sorry. I'm just so done with this. I'm done with that. I mean, I know Moore was a disaster, but I mean, Chris McDaniel would have been great.
This is going to get done. We're going to get it done next week. I don't feel. Yesterday I felt 100% confident, and now I'm probably at 85% confidence because, things can go wrong. That's why, by the way, I think Republicans have acted too slowly. They should just, when you got the momentum, do it.
Right. I mean, again, Steve, this is what drives most Americans crazy. House, Senate, White House, Republican. And we're futzing around at the last minute.
I know.
On the tax reform, the Obamacare repeal, the tax reform, this should have been put to bed months ago. I would have done this thing back in November, early November, before Thanksgiving. Go after Thanksgiving, break with your family, and then in the wintertime you can do something else. But I just found this to be ridiculous. This entire process is infuriating, and if they don't watch their P's and Q's here, they're going to go into the 2018. They're going to get wiped out. If they don't turn this around, they're going to get wiped out. We're going to have to be talking about any tax reform.
I think most of them, almost every one of them, actually finally realizes that if they don't get this done, it's toast for the Republicans in 2018. Look, these guys are like high school students that wait till the very last minute to
study all-nighter.
I did that. Yeah, exactly. And then they could have. Ronald Reagan had his tax cut passed, which was bigger than this one. He signed it along August of 1981. He didn't wait till December. So
remember
right,
Bush? Bush did too. Bush got
ago.
his tax cut through in the summer of 2001. Remember that? Raymond has a question.
Cochran is 80, Steve. 80 years old.
Yep.
I mean, he's, the staff is like walking him, it's like Strom Thurmond's last term, walking him around the halls trying to show him where the restrooms are. If John McCain can't show up for a vote, and you have people like Marco Rubio holding out, this thing may not get done.
Can he vote in absentia? Can he vote from?
It's funny. It's funny you should ask that. There was an old timer at a dinner I was at last night who remembers the Senate back in the 60s and 70s. It used to be you could give. This is a little slice of history. You could give a proxy vote to someone, one of your colleagues, and not have to be there. And there's a famous story about a senator who was literally almost like John McCain on his deathbed, and they had to monitor who was still alive, and they passed a bill by someone casting a proxy vote for him. That you can't do that anymore, so he'd have to show up. They may have to wheel him in on either in a wheelchair or, God forbid, in a stretcher to get this done.
The Republican Party's going to be on a stretcher.
This is going to get done, though. Let's not be negative here. I think we've got this thing.
Oh, come on. Being positive is so easy at Christmas time. What are you talking about?
Exactly.
I'm just
how
teasing.
is it hard to vote for a tax cut?
Yeah. Steve, I love saying that.
When one guy we need to work on is Corker. Corker was a no on the first round.
Well, I don't know about that, Steve. I think when Donald Trump made fun of me and said I was little Bob Corker, I'm going to show him how big I am in the end. I'm telling you that right now. No, Bob Corker's just had it back to. I mean, he's worth a couple $100 million. Corker's really wealthy. He just wants to go back to the high life in Tennessee and hobnob at Davos. I mean, he just wants to go back to Davos, and Davos is not going to be welcoming to Corker if he's a vote for the tax reform. So let's face. But Corker ain't coming home. That's a wishful thinking. All right, Steve.
One other quick thing, Laura, before we go. If we don't get this done, you're going to see the biggest sell-off in the stock market ever. I mean, the stock market is going to drop 1,000 points. I'm serious. I mean, a lot of this is baked in the cake, and this is what I keep telling these Republicans. There's no turning back here, guys. I mean, you're going to tank the economy if you don't get this done.
Hey, Steve. By the way, well, I know we're way over, but I'm sick of hearing about Bitcoin. Okay, I'm sick of hearing about these people who bought Bitcoin at 5,000 and now it's like 20,000. Why didn't I do that? Are you buying this Bitcoin thing?
No, I'm not. I think I'm shorting the Bitcoin. We're going to make America so strong. We're going to create so many jobs. The capital, the dollar is going to be strong. So, no, I don't buy that for 1 minute. You only buy the Bitcoin if you think the world's coming to an end. No, folks, we're coming into one of the great periods of American prosperity if Trump is just allowed to do his thing.
Steve, I also spoke to one of the great investors in the country who runs several mutual funds. He said there's no intrinsic value in a Bitcoin. Why would you, it's like speculate. You're just gambling for no reason. There's no intrinsic value in the thing. It's just people throwing money at it now. It is a dumb commodity, I put that in quotes, to invest in.
But those Winklevoss twins have made a lot on that.
They better twinkle fast because the thing's going down.
Stock market because it's going to go up if we get this tax cut passed. So that's
Steve,
where you want to put your money.
Hey, Steve, I love having you on. You're so great. And say hi to everybody at Heritage and come back soon. And if I don't talk to you, have a great Christmas. Thank you for all the work you've done over the past year for the free market in this country and your writing and your research. I really appreciate it.
Well, congrats on the success of your show. I watch it every night.
All right. God bless you. Steve Moore here on the Laura Ingraham Show, 855-40-LAURA. Will the Republicans fumble it on the 1-yard line? And will you blame Marco Rubio if that happens? 855-40-LAURA.
Christmas presents around the world.
President Trump initially wanted 15, then it went to 20 as the corporate tax cut. But now, under your plan, it would go up to 22.
On the corporate side, a 22% corporate tax rate is 13 points lower than what it is now. Difference between 2022, it would still make us third among the G7 nations. It would still put us below the global average. There is no difference in growth between 20 and 22, especially when you factor in.
Numbers don't matter? You're saying
they do matter, but not in terms of growth. You're not going to see any less growth at 22 than you would at 20.
I didn't hit little Marco.
I have no numbers at all. Nick in Georgia. Nick, go ahead.
Hey, Laura. Thank you for taking the call. Here's the thing. When that Senate bill was coming out, several places, conservative media reported that the Senate bill, mysteriously, we don't know who, i.e., I wonder if it was Rubio, inserted that the earned income tax credit could continue without the verification of an authentic Social Security number. I want to know, Mr. Rubio is so concerned about the elderly, or not the elderly, the low income. Did he ensure us as taxpayers aren't going to be sending money away? And I want to remind every American, tax season, when you go to those corners and there's all those little signs that people put up, and they're in Spanish, and they talk about getting more money and just, contact this agency, they're going to help you or a company. That's what they're doing. They're giving away your money to people who have children, or maybe not even children, with no authentic Social Security number.
Well, we've got to, let's, something? I really appreciate that call, and we'll look into that tonight on the Ingraham angle. If that's true, and I'm not finding that in the bill, but if that's true, that is a complete and utter outrage, and that needs to be exposed, and stripped out of the bill. They can take the pen and just make edits on the fly with a pen, as they did, as we saw a couple weeks ago. They're just crossing things off. Okay. Then they better take this out if that's in there. But I'm not seeing that in there. I see what you're saying, and it's a problem, but I don't see it. So we'll look into that. So I appreciate that. Do we have time for another call? All right, we have 10 seconds. This is what always happens. It gets good, and then we got to take a break.
Well, that judicial smackdown in the House, in that Judiciary Committee.
Okay, we're going to get to that. We're going to get to that. We need better nominees so we avoid embarrassment. Don't go away.
Your Healthy Radio Addiction starts now.
Power to the people!
The Laura Ingraham Show.
Oh, here comes the judge! Here comes the judge! Everybody knows that he is the judge!
Donald Trump now makes history. 12 circuit court judges have been confirmed in his first year in office. That is a record. It's never happened before. The Federal Circuit Court of Appeals are the level right below the Supreme Court, feeding into the Supreme Court. So cases that are appealed from the Federal Courts of Appeals go to the court if they're accepted on certiorari. I clerked on the Second Circuit Court of Appeals in Manhattan, in Lower Manhattan, and he has just put exemplary candidate, judicial candidate nominee after exemplary nominee on the federal courts. And Mitch McConnell deserves an enormous amount of credit for ushering those candidates through. It doesn't mean there haven't been a few hiccups along the way, and that that the Democrats are making hay out of this. And there was one particularly embarrassing example yesterday, which, look, if we were the Democrats, we'd be thrilled. You have to find any glimmer of hope anywhere you can find it, and the resistance needs to be fed. They need to be fed morsels of hope along the way. You got a booming economy. You have 12 circuit court judges. Trump is going to, I think, refashion the judiciary. Thank the good Lord, because Clinton and Obama appointees are destroying the rule of law, as we've seen with those ridiculous rulings on the travel ban. So he's done a phenomenal job
and made some amazing appointments.
Oh no, these people, a lot of them I happen to know, but that's not why they're great. They're great because they're
I admit it. That's why
part
they're
of it.
great.
But a lot of them are clerk for Justice Thomas, Justice Scalia, are practitioners or professors who are highly thought of, and they're judicially conservative. They're not going to make up law on the bench. They're not going to treat themselves as super legislators. They're going to respect the constitutional norms and the constitutional boundaries of the judiciary. However, there are some occasions in which every administration makes mistakes on the lower courts, especially the federal district court judgeships that are numerous across the country that you do have to fill.
Right.
And in the District of Columbia, there's a federal district court of District of Columbia, and they nominated an individual. Raymond will tell us the story.
Matthew Peterson. Now, this isn't a guy without experience, Laura. He was chair of the Federal Elections Commission. He's been a commissioner there for almost 9 years. He's been counsel to 2 congressional committees, the Senate Rules Administrative Panel, the House Administration Committee. But there was a little hiccup in that he has no judicial experience. So they put him forward for this federal judgeship, and he ran into the blades of Louisiana Congressman Kennedy, and the cross-examination did not go so well. This is Senator John Kennedy cross-examining Matthew Peterson. Listen.
Have you ever tried a jury trial?
I have not.
Civil?
No.
Criminal?
No.
Bench?
No.
State or federal court?
I have not.
Okay. Have you ever taken a deposition?
I was involved in taking depositions when I was associate at Wiley
depositions.
Ryan when I first came out of law school.
That was.
Have you ever how many depositions?
I would I'd be struggling to remember.
Less than 10.
Yes.
Less than 10.
Okay, well, let me jump in here for a moment. First of all, Kennedy is not acquitting. I don't think he's acquitting himself all that well either, because Kennedy knows the answer to these questions.
Of course he does.
So he's just playing around. He's
them.
playing a game. He's playing a game. Oh no, this man is not a trial lawyer. He's not a litigator.
No.
And now he's going in to be a district court judge. I personally wouldn't nominate someone.
No.
And this is a Don McGahn friend. Don McGahn is a White House counsel. I like Don McGahn. This was a mistake. Never should have nominated him. Never should have nominated this guy. Put him in another role. He'd be qualified for a different role.
You have to manage a trial.
No, that's complicated. I don't remember half these things.
Yeah.
They asked him about the Daubert rule, which is the rule about experts and how you qualify experts. Asked him about motions in limine.
Rules of evidence and procedure, which he didn't know.
God, man, I can't remember half of these things. Well, just because we want to be in the Christmas spirit, let's continue to showcase the humiliation of a nominee.
Have you ever argued a motion in state court?
I have not.
Have you ever argued a motion in federal court?
No.
When's the last time you read the federal rules of civil procedure?
The federal rules of civil procedure. In my current position, I obviously don't need to stay as, invested in those on a day-to-day basis, but I do try to keep up to speed.
No,
we do have.
Just get up and leave. Mike, drop the mic.
At the Federal Election Commission, roughly 70 attorneys who work under our guidance, including a large litigation division.
Okay. Stop. Now I'm getting a stomachache listening to this. This is not what you want to. This is not how we want to send people into their holiday weekends. Can't we just change to embarrassing moments at holiday parties? Can't we just change the topic right now? I mean, honestly.
No, that's a humiliating. It
is humiliating, and the left is going crazy. It's the #1 trending story on Washington
But why
Post.
would you nominate someone with no experience, no litigation experience?
There are thousands of lawyers. Thousands of lawyers. I think of Wendy Long in New York. Wendy Long in New York. I mean, brilliant. Could be on any district court.
Kyle
Brilliant.
Duncan, was just appointed to the federal court in Louisiana, but he's argued before the Supreme Court. You've got to have litigation.
Yeah, you don't have to
experience.
argue before the Supreme Court, but any good litigator will know the answers to these questions.
Right.
And have done many depositions. You know what? When I see this.
Also, the screenshot I'm looking at, the poor man, he looks like he's just out of answers. He doesn't know where to go. That's a shame. Poor Matthew Peterson. Anyway, needless to say, I imagine his candidacy for this post is done.
Can we change the conversation to ugly Christmas sweaters? I hate the whole ugly Christmas sweaters trend.
Well, you're in luck. Today is National...
855-40-LAURA. 855-40-LAURA. Do you agree with me that the ugly Christmas sweater invention must have come from China? Because half of them that you buy in the store are made in China, and it's just a ploy by China to spend money on toxic chemicals in ugly reindeer or Santa sweaters.
To make Americans look bad.
To make Americans look bad again.
I
despise the ugly Christmas sweater trend or the blazers or the suits. We look bad half the time anyway.
Right, we don't need
travel. We don't need an extra effort to look bad.
Today is National Ugly Sweater Day. Do you know that?
I hate these national days for everything. National, I lost a thimble day. National, I have a hangnail in my small pinky finger day. I'm sick of all these national days too.
Well, go to my Twitter feed.
I
have found the ugliest sweater.
Malcontent.
My engineer, Jay, his mother actually made this ugly horror by hand.
Do you call her a whore?
No, a horror. She made a horror. I'm not Whoopi over here calling people whores. I don't do that.
Oh, okay.
It's Christmas, for goodness sake.
I know.
No. She crafted this thing herself. It is a reindeer, and it had. Well, I won't ruin it for you, but if you go to the Twitter feed,
go
or
to
the
Raymond
Facebook,
Arroyo's Twitter feed. Can you put that up on
I'll send it. You should put it on your site.
Send it to LauraIngraham.com.
I
Send
will.
it to Taylor and
I'll
put it up
copy
on
it.
LauraIngraham.com. I want you to tweet me your ugly sweater photos that I then can discuss on the show, because I find this. See, Peterson should have worn an ugly Christmas sweater. They would have actually had more
They might have
sympathy
voted
for
for
him.
him.
He should have worn that. Do you think little Marco? Is he wearing his boots when he's? Is he still wearing those boots? The boots. He was very nice on the show when he came on. But they're going to push. I'm telling you, they're going to push DACA amnesty before the end of the year. I got a sense from that Scott Taylor in Virginia, who talked a good game on my on the Ingraham angle about how we're going to have security, we're going to do DACA amnesty, and no, we're going to do the RAISE Act. We want to cut legal immigration in the country by half, get rid of chain migration, which accounts for 61% of all immigration into the country, go back to a merit-based system, get rid of the visa lottery, e-verify, build the wall, and then we'll talk DACA amnesty. Do you agree with me on this DACA amnesty, that if they push through DACA amnesty with this phantom thought of more enforcement, you're going to be essentially done with the GOP? 855-40-LAURA. That and the Christmas sweater pictures. I want you to tweet me your ugly Christmas sweater photos, which I'm completely against. And do you agree with me? I feel like I'm being a malcontent at Christmas. And next week will be our annual fake versus real Christmas debate.
Uh-oh.
Although there may be some slippage on my part, given the problems I'm having with the tree. I think it's because we forgot to water it for a few days. I really think that's why, because I love Dan and Brian's trees. They're always fragrant and beautiful. But I think I'm blaming it on the Ingraham family chore list not being done. That's what I'm blaming it on.
We'll debate that next week.
That's
Don't get ahead of yourself.
No. I'm not going to get. But ugly Christmas sweaters, and something about a man wearing an ugly Christmas sweater. You picture usually a 62-year-old woman when they're shopping.
What's the inverse of misogynist? What is that term?
I don't know. That's what I am.
Mansogynist. You're a mansogynist, I think.
But there's something about a man wearing an ugly. It's very unmasculine. It's not a masculine look at all. But to see a grown man wearing a Rudolph sweater with a glowing nose. Actually,
that looks like Bart Simpson and a reindeer had a love child.
And they actually put a bulb in the nose and change the bulb every year because it invariably breaks. This is a man with too much time on his hands.
Yeah, but the back of this sweater that
Okay,
my
don't
engineer,
ruin
it's
it.
a real doozy.
You got to look at this on Twitter. It's hilarious. Okay, DVR us tonight if you're out. Remember, our big push before the end of the year is for Food for the Poor. This is what we do every year. We got to go over the finish line. We have to feed our effort this year is to beat what we did last year. Last year we fed, I think, 3,200 children. We got meals and clean water for 3,200 children for the year last year. That's how much we raised. This year we want to hit, I think, the 4,000 child mark. So that's what we're doing. 4,000 children will be saved this year if you open up your checkbook. Food for the Poor. I want you to go to lauraingraham.com or lifezet.com. Click on that banner and give. $2,500, you get a signed copy of of 2 or 3 of my books. I guess 3 of my books. And I'll write a personal note to you. You can frame it, put it in. It's really cool. For $25,000, you get to come to Washington and you host the last hour of the show with me. We're going to have a great time. And so $25,000, we're looking for 2 of those and 10 $2,500 donors. 855-40-LAURA, but go to the banner, Food for the Poor, on lauraingraham.com.
When's the last time you read the Federal Rules of Evidence?
The Federal Rules of Evidence all the way through would, comprehensively would have been in law school. Obviously, I have been involved in when I was an associate.
It's Christmas time all over the world, and Christmas here at home.
Back on the Laura Ingraham Show. Let's go to the phones. Alex in Texas, you wanted to say what?
Yeah, I just wanted to agree with y'all on the DACA amnesty. I think the immigration issue betrays all of our GOP leadership. Trump ran against 17 pretty qualified candidates, and the one discerning issue that he separated himself on was building a wall and immigration. And I think that's mostly because people believed him on that. And so the fact that, I mean, yesterday y'all were talking about a little bit of compromise and governing a little different than campaigning, but the fact that compromise on immigration has never been on the table for GOP leadership really betrays their intentions.
Mm-hmm. Well, this DACA, we're hearing a DACA deal might be in the offing. Now, what that looks like, who knows? I mean, there's been a lot of talk of tying it to enforcement, maybe even the wall building, and for that, a DACA deal might be in play. But to just willy-nilly grant 800,000 people or whatever it is green cards with no concessions seems foolish. Steve, Illinois, you wanted to say what? Steve, you there? Hard to hear Steve, sorry.
Yeah, I pretty much
go ahead,
echo the previous caller. I think granting DACA... Yes, can you hear me?
We got you.
Okay. I think just granting green cards to the DACA members is a slap in the face for all those who have undertaken the process of becoming a legal citizen through the years.
Yeah, no, there's a big problem there. I mean, there are people who in line now who have done this the proper way. They've followed the law. They've gotten sponsorship. They come into the country correctly. That has to be honored, it seems to me. But you hear on the other hand, look, these DACA people, they're serving in the military. They're valedictorians. When you start peeling back the evidence, as I did the other day and researched this a little bit, 4%, I think, less than 4%. Graduate, from college, as opposed to 18% of Americans. And when you talk about military service, it's like 0.8%, serve in the military. More people are more DACA kids are thrown out of the country due to criminal activity than serve in the military, just to put that in context, So there is a lot of misreporting on this because I think it feels good and everybody wants to. Your heart kind of goes out to these kids who came here, not of their own doing, and they find themselves in America. It is the place they know. But you can't just be giving away citizenship. And so that needs to be worked out. But if you are going to do it, you better get something from it. And last we heard, that's what the president, that's what the House and Senate were leaning toward. But now there are other sounds being made. And I always worry about Christmas time on Capitol Hill. It's the darkest time of the year, actually, on Capitol Hill, because a lot of mischief goes on in these, 11th hour deals so everybody can go to Christmas break. They are willing to do and agree to anything. And now Marco Rubio's holding up the tax plan, and with a slim majority of one vote, and if John McCain, God forbid, should, perish, I don't know where they're going to get the other vote. So things could get very hairy in the next few days, but this must be watched. And I know all of you are calling in and writing in about the ugly sweater. I did. I posted this. I think it's the ugliest sweater I've ever seen. This was an engineer friend of mine. His mother actually made this, so he says. When you see the back of this sweater, you got to drink a lot of eggnog to wear.
That's really what
like
brings
this.
Out the ugliness. In the sweater.
Yeah, it's the back. Well, the front, you really can't. It's a reindeer on the front, the head of a reindeer. But the eyes of the reindeer look like very low-hanging breasts. Now, why a man would want to wear that, I don't know. I'm going to quiz Jay on that. But the back of the sweater is a thing of Christmas tragedy. It's the thing of Christmas tragedies, I think. The number 855-40-LAURA. We will be joined by Brian Kilmeade talking about his new book, Andrew Jackson, and the eradication of history in so many parts of the country. We're also going to get to this Not Me movement, which is gaining steam apparently. Now that you have Russell Simmons, the rap impresario, charged with rape in several instances, he denies those charges and says, I am going to prove my innocence. And he has hashtag Not Me. Tavis Smiley, the PBS host, also firing back. Laura last night on the show said she thought he's believable. We'll get into all of that and much more. The Laura Ingraham Show continues in a moment. Raymond Arroyo sitting in for the great lady. Stay there.
Hi, this is Ben Domenech, the host of the Federalist Radio Hour. We're a daily show coming to you 5 days a week from Washington, D.C., where we interview our nation's top journalists, politicians, authors, chefs, economists, entertainers, and more. If you're looking for a contrarian discussion on news, politics, or culture, give us a listen and subscribe at podcastone.com, the new Podcast One app, or at Apple Podcasts.
I love that sound. This is from an album and a part of a PBS special that I produced called Christmas Time in New Orleans. It's the NOLA Players, 18 great tracks of Christmas classics, but set in a New Orleans vibe. We recorded it, actually, in New Orleans, too. And it is a great segue to my next guest. Brian Kilmeade has an incredible new book, and I've read it from cover to cover, Andrew Jackson and the Miracle of New Orleans, the battle that shaped America's destiny. Brian Kilmeade of Fox and Friends joins us now. Brian, thanks for being with us.
Hey, Raymond. Thanks so much. Last time I saw you, I think you guys were on a book tour getting set for your new show on Fox.
That's right. Well, Laura's new show.
At about midnight.
Yeah, you were guest hosting that 10 p.m. slot and doing the morning hit, which I don't know I still don't know how you did that, but you must teach me the lessons of how you pull that off. Christmas figured largely in Andrew Jackson's life, particularly at this time. He spent a Christmas in New Orleans that was really decisive. Tell us about that before I broaden this, because I watched your special last weekend, by the way. Great special, Andrew Jackson, Hero
Thanks.
Under Fire. And we'll get into that as well. But tell me what that Christmas in New Orleans, how seminal it was and important to the future of the country and its protection.
Well, I mean, for one thing, out of all the interviews I've done, no one's opened up like that, but it's fascinating because the British thought they were going to spend Christmas on Bourbon Street, and I was fascinated to find out, and you know this, that Bourbon Street looked like almost the same as it does now, almost minus the tar and the cars.
Exactly.
So it was known as a party city. So a lot of these officers brought their wives. Yeah, they brought their wives. They said, "Hey, listen." Yeah, Ned Packenham, the general, he said, "Hey, listen, if you wouldn't mind, if you don't mind taking Wellington's army as a payoff, I know you just beat Napoleon." But as a payoff, we'll basically make you governor of New Orleans because we're not leaving, even if we sign a treaty. And they said, great. So a lot of officers in the big ships, obviously you couldn't get close to New Orleans because of the swamps, like you couldn't get close to the shore. Right. They were waiting. They were just waiting for word that they had penetrated the American lines and taken over the city. Instead, from the day one when they decamped and started making some fires and waited for the reinforcements, it was right before Christmas where Jackson got word that the British were here, so he attacked them with axes and bayonets as soon as night fell. And that was unlike anything the Americans had done before. And they said, well, wait a second. I thought these guys were a bunch of farmer militia guys. They were cutting through, and they wouldn't even defend their city. So it was Jackson that rallied the New Orleans people. It was Jackson that made them proud to be an American. After all, Louisiana just became a state before, and Jefferson, not too many years ago, worked out the purchase of the entire territory. So there was a lot of it. They were Spanish, they were French, they were Cajun. Well, there was a lot of question of whether these people in New Orleans wanted to be American. Well, it turns out they did, and it turns out Jackson wasn't taking maybe for an answer. So he told them, you want to be American. If you're 16 and have a gun, you're fighting. We're going to drill, we're going to come up with a plan, and we're going to win. So Christmas was perilous, but there was a sense of something great was about to happen. For the British, they delayed to get reinforcements, huge mistake, and they would have had a chance if they decamped, went right into the city. That's in retrospect going to the war colleges. But then all of a sudden, Jackson says, I know where they landed. I know where they want to go. I can block them. And they built a mini wall. They redug a canal. They got as many guns. Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Like ancient Roman times.
It is an unbelievable story, and and you talk of this miracle of New Orleans, which to those of us who grew up there is sort of well known, and this is why Andy Jackson is such a beloved figure for the people of New Orleans, which I think is lost on a lot of the rest of the country. As you know, as you highlighted in your special, and you talk to people, businessmen, Frank Stewart and others I know down there, there is this battle going on to take down history and remove these markers. Andy Jackson, I think, is next, despite the fact that he saved the city. He's such a hero, but he was a slave owner, Brian. Tell us about what you've reported on and seen of this struggle and battle to wipe figures like Andy Jackson from our cultural memory.
A couple of things. Number one, Jackson aside, when you're walking around tearing down Columbus and you're saying Ulysses S. Grant made an anti-Semitic remark, and then you're saying Robert E. Lee fought for the wrong side. Oh, okay. Number one, Confederate statues, I think, are a conversation. I really do. I think you could say that these people picked the wrong side, were great Americans, almost destroyed the country, and I think without hurting the pride of the South and a lot of great people in their heritage, I think there could be a Confederate region and museum. I'm okay with that, having that discussion. But when you're walking around saying, well, 9 of the first 12 presidents had slaves, Washington had slaves, Jefferson had slaves, might have had relations with slaves, Monroe, I believe, had slaves. So then you have Jackson, who almost 85% of all landowners had slaves. We hate the idea that they did it. But if you want perfect people on statues, we are going to be a nation of empty pedestals because there's no one worthy of remembering and commemorating. Yeah. So just put there, were we happy that he had the Hermitage was run while he fought this war? The Hermitage was run by slave labor? Absolutely not. It's abhorrent, But in retrospect, to take our values of today and put them on people 200 years ago is an arrogance to this generation that I have not seen in previous generations. My goodness, it was Nancy Pelosi's father in 1948 who commissioned the building of the Robert E. Lee statue in Baltimore. Should we condemn Nancy Pelosi and her father? What is wrong with those people that watched African Americans walk to the back of the bus in the 50s and the 40s and thought that was okay? It isn't. But do I condemn everyone that lived in those times? Do I condemn Barack Obama in 2008 for coming out that marriage is between a man and a woman? And in 2012, he ran on the fact that same-sex marriage should be legal, and in many states, and it is. So was he a horrible person in 2008? And was he a great person in 2012? Can we just watch and study and stop looking back with a consternation eye and say, how dare you not be as enlightened as we are in 2017? So if you take down Jackson's statue, the man that saved the country and saved that city and who became the 7th president of the United States and really legitimately won 3 elections nationwide, a self-made orphan kid at 13 who became a rich president by the time he was 50, if you're going to start doing that, we might as well not even have social studies in history.
No, he was an incredible figure and flawed, as you mentioned, and as you point out in the book. And that's why I think what you've done, Brian, with Andrew Jackson and the Miracle of New Orleans, it reminds us of the greatness and the complexity of these people, and that we dare not separate the two. It's one piece, and I think if we are honest with our children and to future generations, we have to acknowledge the entirety of these people, because we are all like them. We're flawed, we have great qualities, we have great things we're called to, and yet there's a humanity there that needs recognition. When I look at a statue I saw growing up in New Orleans, there was a General Beauregard statue, which they've just removed. It's an empty pedestal now. I was opposed to the removal of that for this reason. Beauregard came back from the war and dedicated his fortune and time to building the first public schools for African American children. That is part of his legacy. Wow. And I think that entire conversation and the possibility of redemption is an important lesson for our kids. But you can't do that with a block of brick, which is what it is outside of City Park now. It's a block of brick. There's no statue there, no marker.
And the thing is, who are we? Who are these parents? Who are these 20-year-old activists who feel as though they know enough? They know more than people that live hundreds of years before them. Which one of those University of Virginia people who stand up and protest against Jefferson? By the way, go to another college. He invented it. If you don't like it, don't
University
go.
of Virginia was his.
Colleges in the area. Yeah, it's unbelievable.
Brian, tell me what the reaction has been. I know you've been a scholar. I know you've been out on book tour and seen you all around the country promoting the book. What's been the reaction to this, and what surprised you the most about people's appreciation or changed perception of Andy Jackson?
Well, I don't get a lot of hostility because I'm not doing the definitive biography that John Meacham did. If you pick up John Meacham's book, The American Lion, you don't say, I could do it better. I can't. I don't have the time. I just pick one area. And if you want to talk about his tactics, he put together an army that was Choctaw Indians, Cherokee Indians, free men of color, Marines, pirates, Tennessee militia. So he has everybody in there as a cross-section. Right. He adopted an American Indian boy who sadly passed away at 18. So, there's a lot of contradictions to him. So if you want to be hostile to me, I could take it, but I'm not going to defend every area of his life. And John Meacham doesn't either. He records it and transfers it. So I'm not getting a lot of hostility, but I do get some fascinating questions. Today I'm going to be at the Nixon Library and Reagan Library in the same day. And I don't think it's going to be hostile, but I know I'm going to get questions. But guess what? Nixon loved Jackson, and Reagan insisted on having his picture before he took office in front of the Jackson statue. So what were these horrible people like Lincoln, Teddy Roosevelt, FDR, Truman, and Reagan thinking? They did some studying. They had some accomplishments. They knew he wasn't perfect, but, man, they thought there was a lot to learn. So I'm not arrogant enough to think I know more than Lincoln. But I am smart enough to know if there must be something there if Lincoln liked him.
Well, he preserved the Union, and he protected our country. And with New Orleans about to have its 300th anniversary next year, it's a time to remember, Jackson's role. And as you point out in the title and in the heart of the book, which I loved, and have a devotion to, Our Lady of Prompt Succor and the Ursulines in New Orleans play a role in this as well, which Jackson recognized and they recognized him. Talk a little about that, because I think at Christmas time it's an important inflection of faith that people often miss in the Jackson story.
Well, Jackson's religious. I mean, at one point he was going to church every day. And here's a guy that lost his two brothers in war and his mom during the war and his dad before he was born, never got a present or celebrated Christmas with a family. He had every reason to be bitter and angry. Instead, he was somebody extremely religious, saw the role of Christianity in his life. And one of the first things he did is understand this convent, this Ursuline convent was upset. They thought that Jackson might come in and just gut the place and take it over. And he said, no, just the opposite. I'll preserve it. And he said, well, concerned about the reports about the British terrorizing. He goes, well, I'll protect you. And he said, okay, we'll pray for you, and we'll take the second half of the convent, and we'll make it a hospital. Sadly, they thought there could be a ton of casualties. Instead, there was 13 deaths and 39 casualties, unlike the 495 missing for the British and 200 plus 10 and thousands over still just about 2,000 were casualties. So he said that their prayers, he firmly believed that their prayers gave them divine intervention into the battle, for the British to make huge mistakes and for the Americans to make everything went right for us.
Mm-hmm.
And every January 8th they celebrate to this day.
They do. It's an
and now it's a museum if you're in the area.
Yeah, the Ursuline Convent there, it's still open, and you can go and visit. They've got a great exhibit, and with the 300th anniversary of New Orleans, this is going to really be featured prominently. Brian Kilmeade, Andrew Jackson, and the Miracle of New Orleans at bookstores everywhere. Makes a great Christmas gift. Best of luck at the Reagan Library and the Nixon Library today, and we'll see you soon, Brian.
All right, go get him. Thanks so much.
You too. And we will be back on the Laura Ingraham Show. We're going to talk about the rising Not Me movement. Not Me Too, but Not Me. What is that? We'll tell you in a second. Stay right there.
The Laura Ingraham Show.
Merry Christmas, baby. You sure did treat me nice. Yes, you did, man.
Let me say at the outset that I have the utmost respect for all women, and I certainly celebrate the courage of those women who've come forth of late to share their own truth. But let me also assure you that I have never groped, inappropriately exposed myself, or coerced any colleague in the workplace ever in my 30-year career. PBS overreacted, and they launched a sloppy investigation. It is clear that this has gone too far, and I, for one, intend to fight back.
Well, he's not alone. That is Tavis Smiley, the PBS host, hosted his own show for, I think it's 15 seasons on PBS. He has been charged with sexual misconduct. PBS launched an investigation and suspended him. He says these were consensual relationships, and he's going to fight back. Now, he's not alone. Russell Simmons, the rap impresario, also has launched what he's calling a Not Me movement, as opposed to a Me Too movement, a Not Me movement. There seems to be a pushback from some of the guys who are being accused in all of this. Do you think the Me Too movement might have gone too far? 855-40-LAURA, 855-405-2872. I know personally, well, I don't know about this instance personally, but many years I worked with an actor, Robert Knepper. We did summer stock together. You might know him from Prison Break, and he's on a show now called iZombie. I haven't had contact with him in, 20 years. But he was accused by 5 women who came forward accusing him of sexual misconduct, including, I think, an actress and a costume person or makeup person. Warner Brothers launched an investigation. He was thrown off the set of this iZombie show, told he was suspended. They did an investigation. Guess what? Robert Knepper was back on the set this week because he was cleared of all the accusations. So there is something to be said about innocent until proven guilty. And I realized, as last night on the Ingraham angle, I was opposite a woman who was saying, no, that's a legal term. Well, it may be a legal standard, but it should also be a cultural one. We can't just have people's careers and lives destroyed and devastated because someone makes an allegation. I mean, if it's true and verifiable, bye-bye. But if it isn't, you can't just use that as a political tong to go at people who perhaps you're disappointed in, or it's a relationship that went bad. And when you begin to pick through the surface of some of these accusations, like the Matt Lauer case, we have a woman coming forward that said, wait, I had a consensual relationship with him, but I didn't tell anybody till 7 years later, but I believe the other accusers. Well, A, you weren't there, and B, why are you talking when it was a consensual relationship? So there's a lot of conversation, I think, to be had around this movement, and might it be getting out of hand and creating unjust situations for some of the accused? 855-40-LAURA. We'll get into that and much more. The Laura Ingraham Show continues. Raymond Arroyo sitting in for the great lady. Stay here.
Thanks for listening to the Laura Ingraham Show podcast. Download new episodes every week at podcastone.com. That's podcastone.com.
Podcast One has new shows on our new app. Check out all the cool features to help you explore our exciting new programming, like America's Lakers podcast with Jay Moore, Sessions with Randy Jackson, So Random with Corinne Olympios, Attack Each Day, The Harbaugh's podcast, Not Just Sports with Susie Schuster and Rich Eisen, and Sound of Success, the Dick Enberg podcast, as well as your old favorites like The Lady Gang, Steve Austin, Shaquille O'Neal, and Adam Carolla. Get the new Podcast One app in the App Store, Google Play, or podcastone.com.